Hello and welcome back to the Talking Leadership TV Best Practice Network podcast series. Thanks for joining us again. I'd like to introduce my co-host, Kevin Bennett. Kevin is the Best Practice Network facilitator for Queensland. Kevin has over 30 years of international industry experience and he's implemented a number of operational and business excellence programs across many sectors. Kevin is passionate about bringing together people and processes to grow and build capability and to deliver excellence in customer service and process performance. And now to introduce our podcast guest, Nathan Hedger. With an extensive background in performing, Nathan spent more than a decade making audiences experience the impossible. Nathan's background as a magician is ingrained with years of intensive acting training, which has enabled him to integrate that training into his career as an international magician. From humble beginnings in Brisbane to performing on super yachts in Monaco for the Formula One Grand Prix, to now owning and creating the largest specialised magician agency in Australia and potentially the world. With a team of over 45 magicians across Australia, New Zealand, Singapore and America, he's continually on the pursuit to share his incredible art form to as many people across the world as possible, showing that kids' magic may be one thing, but magic for adults is on a whole nother level. Really enjoyed this podcast discussion, and I'd like to thank Kevin for his time in co-hosting. But enough from me, over to Kevin to open the session with today's guest, Nathan.
Hello there, and welcome to the Best Practice Network Talking Leadership podcast series. My name is Kevin Bennett, and I'm your host for today, along with the fabulous Eric. How are you, Eric?
Good, my friend. How are you?
Very, very good, and really looking forward to this one in a number of ways. So I really would like to welcome Nathan Hedger. He's the CEO of Omegan Entertainment. How are you, Nathan?
I'm great. Thank you very much. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, and we are as well. Just back from a big trip from the US, which I'm sure we're talk about. So, as you know, in these series, it's really about understanding people's leadership journeys, understanding the key lessons they've learned, and then talking around some whatever is very, very topical that we're all learning through our own journeys, but also what we're hearing about and what's happening around our different networks. So Nathan, keen to I think you need to introduce your business because it is slightly different from our normal businesses and normal roles, and then just introduce yourself and then how you've got to where you are today.
Yeah, fantastic. So, well, my name is Nathan Hedger. I've been performing magic for about 10 years now professionally. In total for maybe about 15, 20 years, something like that. And our business is called Omegan Entertainment. And so Omegan Entertainment is a magician agency, so specialized magician agency. And we are the largest one in Australia and New Zealand. And I think we're tipping the scales to possibly being the largest one in the world now, with a team of about 40, I think we're at 47 magicians at the moment, if my memory serves correctly. And so we specialize in magic for adults. So things like corporate events, product launches, brand launches, corporate schmoozing nights, things like that, corporate Christmas parties, but also private functions like weddings, birthday functions, bucks parties, hens nights, and even all sorts of things. So that's a little bit about it.
So 10 years, 15 years, what was you doing before that then? Do you always had a thing about magic, or was you suddenly had this epiphany and went, I'm off doing something different?
Well, it's kind of funny. I've had a few different careers over the years. I actually started off studying acting. So film and TV acting was what I was passionate about, and I did that for about 10 years as well. And I studied that at university. I studied that at some private colleges as well. And so that was what my main goal was. But over those years, I also had a main job, I guess you'd say, supporting that. So my first ever job was at Super Cheap Auto. I spent 5 years working there. So I'm a bit of a car nut as well. Okay. And so I worked my way up through into a management role there, and then left there and went into pest control out at the mine. So complete shift. Yeah. I did that for about 7 months, and then came back and then ended up going into petrol stations and working at some Coles Express petrol stations, and then getting into hospitality, working at a leagues club, and basically did just about every role you can possibly do in the leagues club, from kitchen hand to bartending, to cleaning plates, to restaurant, to gaming, and even hosting promotions and all that kind of stuff. So and it kind of led into magic through all of that. Somehow I actually met a magician probably about 14 years ago, I think, back when I used to go to church, and he was touring around doing what was called gospel magic, and he performed shows at churches, and I knew a trick deck of cards I'd gotten from the markets, and at the time I was still studying acting, and I showed him that trick. It was pretty average back then. But he told me where to go to learn some more. And a few years later, while I was doing some private courses for acting, we reconnected, and he ended up putting me forward for a job for a private part. So that's kind of like the introduction.
Well, and I'm just looking at all those roles, and I can see how you must have to use some of all those skills in those different roles with working with the groups, and just to let everybody know, and we actually met recently, so we're both doing you're doing the CEO Sleep Out, aren't we, this year? Yeah,
absolutely.
And so I'm unashamedly going to give out a call out here, Eric. So we're both doing the CEO Sleep Out. We're doing it in Brisbane in June. We are part of the GOATS team. And now last year, we established the record of raising over 300,000 for last year for homelessness. And we're aiming for 500,000 to 600,000 this year. So if anyone's listening to this, come and support the GOATS. Come and support myself, Nathan. It's a fantastic cause. So that's how we met, because Nathan walked up and said hello and started doing some magic. And I thought, this is great fun. This is great fun. So Nathan, how would you describe your leadership style?
I would say my leadership style is a little bit more, I guess you'd say, calm and collected, I guess you'd say. I have a bit more patience than my 2IC in Melbourne, we'll put it that way. So when I feel like with my teams and everything, I like to try and take the softer approach of training them, coaching them if there's any mistakes that they make. Often it's me breathing internally, going, okay, no, let's not approach this in the wrong way. Let's coach them and try and teach them how to be better and how to fix it and not make the mistake in the future, kind of thing.
Yep. And I suppose that must be quite. I like the calm and collected, because I think a lot of us could do with some more of that to deal with it. And I think I want to explore this a little bit more, because your team, you and your team, are obviously real that external focusing and how they has that instant reaction. So I really want to explore that coaching, learning, mentoring phase that you do have, because it's really coming up as a more and more, especially with skills gaps we've got at the minute. And what we're seeing in the industry is you need to nurture your team and bring them along. But I'm really interested. I'm going to come to you about how you do that at the very start and watch the process. But with you and your team, it's there, it's live, it's instant, it's it has that dramatic effect and impact as well. So how do you? Wow, that exactly like that. And Eric, you missed it, Matt. You missed it.
I'll be able to see it on the re-record or the edit process.
Exactly.
I was going to add one thing, if I could, sir, Mr. Kevin. Nathan, the other bit that is of interest to me is your communication strategy, like for yourself, because given all the industry sectors in which you've worked in, and some of them are really high stress, and I'm thinking of the Leagues Club here, that worrying about the other is critical to providing a good service. And so I'm fascinated to find out how that translates to how you do your leadership. And I think that's underscoring everything that Kevin wants to talk to you about, that coaching and mentoring around skills gaps, because I have a theory here. I have no literature to back me on this, but if you're going to take a coaching approach and you're trying to deal with skills gaps, the last thing you want to be doing is having a short fuse, or not wanting to understand that at times there are going to be stuff ups and you need to learn from that. So I'll leave Kevin to go first with his questions, and we'll come back to the comm stuff later. So over to you, Kevin. Sorry, mate.
No, that's great. So again, I suppose I wanted to just go back to, so your leadership to 40, which is fantastic, and great to have you as part of the largest Australia New Zealand. And it sounds like you're going for the global game as well, which is fantastic. So what's your leadership structure within the business? So let me just clarify. So you're CEO, and do you call yourself chief magician, or what do you call yourself?
You know, it's funny because I actually wasn't the one to call myself the CEO originally, but it's all my team that were like, oh, hey, this is our CEO, this is our CEO and stuff. And I'm just like, I feel like I'm a little bit more humble. I just call myself, I was like the director of the business. That, you know, I'm also a magician and stuff, but I kind of try to think of us as all just one big team. But everyone else is like, oh, this is our CEO, this is our CEO. So I'm like, all right. But basically, it's me here at the top. I own the business, I run it, I started it. But then there's my 2IC. His name's Nick, and he's based in Melbourne. He was the very first magician I brought on board when I started the agency, and between the both of us, we basically built this from ground up. So he's been there since day one. And he's also a state manager for us. So he looks after the whole of Victoria.
Okay.
And so basically, he's a 2IC in the whole business, but also manages the whole state of Victoria. The other people in the business, I guess you'd say, there's two more main people. There's James, we call him Lopez, but James, who's based in Colorado in the US, and he's basically the state manager for there. And he helps us head up some of the US things. And then there's Alexa, which is our executive assistant, and she's phenomenal, and she basically helps tie everything together, which is fantastic. So I basically oversee everything. I also run all the other states in Australia and New Zealand, and then I also run everything in the US, and we're looking at doing some stuff in Singapore as well, because we've got a team over there now too.
Wow. Okay. So just going back to your number of roles that you've had, was there a leader that you come across that stood out for you? And if there was, and I'm happy to hear good and bad examples here, what's resonated or stuck with you as part of your own leadership journey?
As in leader within the team or within myself and my journey?
No, but what you've come across leaders. So when you're working with Super Chief Auto or the pest control or the leagues, so what's because sometimes there's pivotal moments which either goes yes or you go no, and they can have quite a big impact on your own leadership style going forward.
I think I had a really good relationship with one of my managers back at Super Cheap Auto. Back in the day, I guess he was a very good leader in my eyes. He knew how to manage the team quite well. He had a good way of handling just about any situation, which I really liked as well. His name is Michael. He still works for Super Cheap actually, but he works in their head office now doing some other things. But I think for me, watching him as a manager looking after a team of people and the way that he handled it all, even all the blunders and the mistakes and things like that, it was very much that kind of style. Now that you mention it, that cool, calm, collected kind of style. He helped teach you how to do better and not make the mistakes in the future. There's been a couple of leaders, I guess you'd say, over the years in various roles that have been the opposite, where I've gone, oh, that's I don't know if I want to keep working here. I think Michael would probably be one of the positive influences in that leadership kind of role for me over those years in those different.
And I think it's interesting, especially with the background you've got and obviously what you're doing now. And I think Eric picked up on it as well. Some of those roles are pretty high intensity, high pressure, very external facing. And I think and again, to be interesting what your thoughts are, but if you're a manager in an organization where it's very internal focus, it's a real different game when you're having to deal with customers or clients, external and other services, because you almost don't have that different set of eyes or different set of pressure. You've almost got that customer service link in you.
Yeah.
doing the right thing. Is that, do you feel that's been an impact as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think, with the whole hospitality side of things, that's been a big help and influence for my own growth in my own business over the years, because of the fact that I've been able to, like, you're spending that time with the customers, as well as you're doing the behind the scenes, in all these various different roles. But back in the hospitality side of things, there was always someone that was, it was always challenging trying to do the job while doing the customer service side of things and please both
Yep.
at the same time.
Yep.
Because there was always a supervisor on the job side of things that was always wanting more, but then they were wanting me to keep doing the customer service side of things, but they were wanting more from the other side. And then you're trying to do the customer service side of things, and it's just kind of clashing because you can't do everything all at once. Yeah. I don't
I
know if
have a
that answers the question.
question. No, very much so. Sorry, Kevin. I do have a question for you, Nathan. You mentioned before that you are the founder, the director. You've now taken on the title of CEO because everyone in your team is calling you that, which is great. A bit of external validation there. But as a founder, how difficult has it been, or maybe it hasn't been difficult to separate you as a magician, the entertainer part of the work that you do, and then the founder, manager of a team type deal? And is that tension an ongoing one? As in, do you see in the future that you'll step away more from the direct work in the business and in the entertainment side of the business, actually delivering for your customers and sort of stepping back and having that sort of oversight role? And why I ask this, and you sort of provided some foreshadowing here, is that if you're expanding into Southeast Asia, you've got a foothold in the US and potentially Europe down the track, this is going to end up being quite a large business. If you're the biggest one that there is at the moment, it's only going to get potentially bigger. Have you seen that this choke point is coming for you? And if so, are you thinking about it, or have I potentially made you think about something you don't want to be thinking about?
No, look, you're 100% true. This is something that has been a big thinking point for me over the last few years in particular. It's because we started the agency. I started the agency in 2018. And that came off the back of one of my main clients that was booking me for work. And it was actually a venue called Holy Moly. I don't know if you've heard of Holy Moly. It's like a mini golf park. Yeah, fantastic venue. And back in 2017, I started working for them, and they started booking me for a residency, so ongoing work. And I put my heart and soul into that. I was like, I need this to work. And there's some funny stories about that, but long story short, I needed that. I wanted that job to work because it was such a cool venue and I really loved it. And so after a year of performing there every week, they decided they wanted to roll it out into more of their venues. And so me being me, I was like, well, I'll put together a team. I'll find the right guys. I'll make it happen, and let me run that for you. And that's when we officially started the agency side of things. And for about a year, it was a constant battle for me internally, going between being the manager and booking all the guys and focusing on the agency and building the agency Google reviews, building the agency profile and everything like that. But also I had my own personal brand, my own personal profile, and I was doing magic myself. And it's constant battle there of trying to figure out, okay, where do I send this? Where do I send that? And as things grew, and in particular, now that I've focused more on the agency, and I've kind of started to let my own personal ambitions kind of drop away a bit, I guess you'd say, because I've realized that the business needs me in more of a CEO role, more of a higher business kind of role to help it grow. And it's a constant battle where I'm like, I love performing, I really love performing, but like this year in particular, for example, I think I'm probably going to be overseas for a good chunk of it. Like I've got another 2 trips to the US that I've got to go do. I've got 3 weeks in Europe. I'm performing over in Monaco and for the Formula One Grand Prix with a supercar company over there. So that's coming up next month. So I'm not going to be back in Australia a huge amount. But a lot of the other trips that I'm doing this year is short trips, and they're for the business, for the growth, rather than for me performing. And so it's kind of just getting to a point where I'm starting to have to be quite selective on which events I accept myself and which events we book in our other guys for. So the future, I'm not sure where it's going to go. I still love performing. I don't want to give it all up. I don't want to give it all up, and I'm good at it. From what people say, I'm good at it.
It's that same tension in some of the discussions I've had with Kevin and others, particularly those in the entrepreneurial space, that you've built this thing, this creature, your baby, to a certain point, and at some point, are you in the business? How are you serving the business, or are you standing back and doing the strategic stuff? And I think it's a great tension to have, particularly if you're growing. But if your passion is to perform, then one of these things is going to suffer. Some of the conversations I've had, founders like yourself, those that have built successful businesses, have almost had to come to a point where, no, I need to appoint a CEO to do this role, and I might become an ambassador for the business. I might perform more in the business, but not do the operational stuff. So that tension's an interesting one. And look, it's a good problem to have. It's not, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but my interest in as a professional here, and Kevin may have a view of this as well, is that if you're doing what you really love, which it sounds like it is that you do, then it's difficult to make those choices as they come up, because your attention's going to be pulled in so many different directions. And how do you do the core job, and which of those jobs is your core job? So,
It's interesting because, especially after I've come back from this latest US trip, which I spent 5 weeks over there, and it's interesting because one of the things that I've realized that I myself excel in is being able to build relationships. And that's something I really enjoy. And that's something I'm passionate about, is building relationships, because I think business is all about relationships and having connections with people and working together to help each other grow. Because like, as you guys would know, you can't grow on your own without working together with other people and without supporting each other. And I think the further we progress with our business, the more I'm realizing that I need to start taking off some of those hats. And the E-Myth Revisited is a great book that kind of explains about those all the different hats and stuff. And as like what you were saying about the daily operations, I'm starting to let a lot more of that go and start handing that off to some of the other people in our team. And we're going to have to continually start expanding our team in the admin and operations kind of side of things to help cater for that. And I think long term, where my role is probably going to sit is more that business relationships at the higher end, so to speak, of dealing with that kind of thing and the growth, and then performing more for those kinds of events, to showcase what we do and performing for those kinds of things. So I still get that little bit of performing. But we've got a team of incredible magicians. I need to start letting some of that go.
Yeah, and it's a real dilemma, and I suppose we've learned a lot. And again, really about that entrepreneur founder when you go to that point, because there's an element of, I've got my passion, want to do it. It's what gets me up and going. I also want to grow the business, but I think there's a third element there. There's also still being connected to the business and what your team are having to deal with, because as you grow, you're doing the Monaco Grand Prix and you're doing. So if you need someone to carry your bags, I'm there for you. It's not a problem. I'm always willing to do my bit to help anybody along the journey. But I suppose part of this leadership in is staying connected enough to business that you know what your magicians are dealing with as well. Because I can imagine, all your team will love, but there'd be certain events where everything just goes smoothly. It's well coordinated, it's well managed. You've got great hosts, and everything just works. And there'll be others where, and we've all had those days, which is just, despite the best planning, it's a dog's breakfast. It just completely. And I suppose part of that is about how do you understand that as well, so you know what your magicians are dealing with. So so there's a bit of connected piece there. So what's your style? Because there must be some times where some of your team just come back and said that was a waste of time. I'm done, or I'm not going back. What's your strategy there? Because dealing with those internal, I'm trying to grow the business, I'm trying to do that. How do you still stay connected with those type of opportunities?
Yeah, so I guess we have a couple of different things in place for that kind of situation. So that's where I guess Nick comes into play a little bit with with the magicians themselves. So he is quite good with, in particular with the Australian guys, but he's quite good with keeping in contact with all of the magicians regularly, checking in on them. Usually after events that I'm looking after, I'm always checking in with the guys. Hey, how did that go? How did were you happy with everything? Did you enjoy it? That's probably one of the main things I do often ask is I'm like, did you enjoy it? Because I think to me, whatever we do, we always need to make sure we're enjoying it and having fun. But we're also starting to get to a point where we're trying to look at other options within our team to have like a team leader, so to speak, that we can then put into that role as Nick steps up, and have someone put into a team leader role to do his part to check in with the guys, maybe catch up with them for lunch or whatever, and make sure everyone's having doing well. But I think because we're a little different to some other entertainment agencies is because we're a magician agency run by a magician who's been doing it for 10 years. When we get events come through and inquiries come through for events, I'm able to train up Alexa, and Nick already knows this. But when we're booking events, we already know what kind of questions we need to ask, and we can advise people on, okay, magic's not going to work in this particular spot. You've got meals coming out on the table. It's a main course, and you want us to perform while people are eating. That doesn't work, because it's a conflict. And that's the kind of situation where you're going to get magicians that are going to be like, oh, that was just such a horrible event because they were eating at the same time when we were doing this. And so because we have that knowledge from the get-go on how magic really works at events and what areas it will work with and what are the trouble points, we can try to eliminate as many issues as possible from that side of things. So hopefully that kind of helps answer that.
Yeah, no, I think it's just really exploring, I suppose, with everything that we've all gone through in the last number of years, and I'm sure your business especially. And it's one point I've got is that this COVID period, because suddenly it's a bit like our events. You just couldn't get out. You weren't meeting people. You couldn't do that type of thing. I think a lot of people really realize being connected to the team in a positive way was actually fundamental to just team well-being, personal well-being, but success as well. So can we just talk about that? How did you handle that period then? Because suddenly I imagine you were out about doing everything else. You must have had that whole I'm assuming, it must have just stopped, gone.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I'll tackle that in two different answers, I guess. You were saying about having the people work together as a team and having that team building and all that kind of stuff. I'll quickly address that if that's all right. It's interesting because magic as an industry is very solo, very independent, and everyone's constantly working and to fight against each other basically for the same inquiries, for the same jobs, and for ages now it's just been such an individual kind of industry and a solo industry. And what we've been trying to do with Omegan Entertainment is change that whole thing. So we're not competing against each other for the same work, but rather working together to just grow the whole industry. Yep. Because the way that I see things, which is a little different to some of the other guys, but the way that I see things is, like, if I was to walk into the center of Brisbane City, into the very center there, stand there in the middle and turn around and look around 360 degrees, I'm not going to see one business. I'm going to see like 500 businesses. And if we're only getting an inquiry from one of those businesses for a corporate Christmas party, there's 499 other businesses that don't even know we exist, that don't even know that they can have magic and magicians at an adult function. You know, so where I see things is like, instead of us all fighting for the same inquiries that are coming through Google, we need to be growing the whole industry by just telling more people about what we do, and then having, you know, everyone know what we do so we can expand all and work together as a team, rather than fighting against each other for the same jobs.
It sounds like you purposely wanted to be a disruptor, or was it by chance that you were? And I don't mean disruptor in a negative sense. I mean in terms of what your industry is doing, because it sounds like it's not typical of what other magicians would do. So did you do that on purpose, or was it a happy accident?
Yeah, I'd say it was probably a little bit of both. It originally, I guess, when we were starting to expand the team, then I kept running into these issues where people were afraid of losing out on work that they might already be getting. And it's like, okay, well, I need to change this. I need to change this whole perspective, this mindset, but also I need to change the whole industry. So I guess it was when I started running into that kind of issue that I started going, okay, this has got to change. We got to stop. You know, in Brisbane here, there's a handful of us that all work together and have been for years, even before I started the agency. And that was what helped get me into magic, helped grow me, my magic career, was because we were working together. Like if someone was already booked for an event, they'd be like, oh, yeah, sweet, here, reach out to this person. He's available and he'd be perfect for your event in my place because I'm already booked, things like that. And so there was a handful of us up here that were working really well together, and we still do to this day. And we were acting kind of like colleagues, individual businesses, but acting as colleagues, which was really nice. And that was the kind of thing I wanted to try and expand into the other areas, and that mindset into other areas, but, you know, kind of 10x it basically. So yeah, it kind of came from necessity and by chance, a bit of both, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Can we just explore? And I want to just come back to that. It's something I'm else working on. But so just talk about this period. So we all remember that day, or it almost feels like a day. To me, it's one of those days where it suddenly resonated. So how did you, again, because you're a founder, I mean, that at that time you would have been on that real big growth, and I'm sure you had all this momentum and all these great plans. Just describe how that was for the industry, for the business, but then you as a leader as well.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, with the COVID, I don't know,
the COVID.
I'm saying some really weird things at the moment, and when you go back between American English and Australian English, I'm just like, hold on, why do I say that? That doesn't make sense. But,
no, Nathan, it's funny you said the word COVID. Kevin avoided saying the word COVID until we got to this point. I'm thinking, for a second, I thought, what event is he talking about? Did I miss something out here? And I thought, oh shit, okay, this is it. And you said it. So yes,
I
COVID.
forgot to tell you, I sometimes read minds, and you know, I just
okay, excellent.
No, look, in all honesty, COVID for us was an absolute mess. We'll keep it nice words, mess. And it was rough because at the time we were performing 2 nights a week with residencies. We were performing 2 nights a week. I think we had about 16 regular bookings every single week across Australia and New Zealand. And then on top of that, we had all the private functions, we had all the corporate events, things like that. We had some solid momentum behind us. And things were going great, and we just kept on building and building.
Mm.
And then COVID happened, and I remember distinctly, like, I think it was a date in March, I think it was, from memory, where it was just like a one call after another. Everything overnight just got cancelled.
Yeah.
100% work.
Yeah.
Not even just a little bit, it was 100%. Everything got cancelled because everyone went into lockdown. No one could go out. We lost 100% of work overnight, and it was rough. It was so rough. And then the other thing that kind of doubled down on that is, in Australia, obviously, we had the JobKeeper that came out. And with our team, they're all contractors.
Yeah. Okay.
They're not employees.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, I really want to help out our team. I want to do everything I can to help them out because they're all struggling and they're my team. They're my family in my eyes. Whether it's two-way street, I have no idea. But in my eyes, they're my team. I want to do everything I can to look after them. And it was rough because they're all contractors. I couldn't get the JobKeeper for them. They had to try and get it all themselves, and I couldn't help them out by giving them any gigs because there were no gigs. There was no events. And so for about 6 months, we didn't have any work at all.
Wow.
And to the point where I couldn't do anything for them, but at the same time, I had to figure out a way to survive myself. And I was an employee of the company, so I was able to get JobKeeper, which was a lifesaver for me because I was the director of the company. But it wasn't enough to survive for what we were doing and everything. And so I kind of doubled down on a side hobby business that I used to do, which was fixing laptops and fixing and selling laptops. And because everyone needed to take their work home with them, everyone was on laptops, everyone was on phones. And so I doubled down on that for a few months, and then also ended up getting a job as a removalist with a friend of mine who had a removalist business just down the street from me. And so I was trying to do everything I can just to kind of stay afloat.
Yeah.
And it was hard because my passion was Omegan Entertainment. My passion was magic, and we were on this skyrocketing kind of path, and it just went crashing down overnight. And it was brutal. And I know for me, I kept on trying to talk myself out of it, saying, "Oh no, it's going to be fine. We're going to come back again in a month, or come back in a couple of months," and everything like that. And it just didn't. And it took me probably a good month or two to really let it sink in and be like, "No, this is not going away anytime soon. I need to figure something else out." And so about 6 months in, we actually started talking to the guys and trying to figure out some other alternatives. And what we started doing was we started offering Zoom shows.
Yeah.
Because people can't go out of their houses, but corporates are still wanting to try and do team building things and team building activities and parties. All the Christmas parties got cancelled, all the financial functions, all the team building activities got cancelled. And so we actually started offering Zoom shows. And I remember one of the biggest ones we did at the time was for ANZ, I think it was, and it was for 500 people all across Australia. And we had the guy was one of a team that was doing it. His name was Adam, and he was performing from Sydney.
Yeah.
And so we've got someone in Sydney performing 500 people that you can't even see on the screen.
Yeah.
And as a magician, that's really like you try to gauge responses or anything. Like when you're doing a stage show in an actual big room, and you've got everyone sitting down, 500 people sitting down, you can hear cheers, you can hear laughing, you can hear things. When you're on a Zoom call, it's silent. Like you're hoping things are landing and people are enjoying it and having a great time. And he crushed it. Like he absolutely crushed that one. And the guys did a great job. Improvising, creating new magic that you could do virtually. Me personally, I never really did that myself. I just booked the guys that actually had invested the time and energy into it because I was trying to figure out other ways to kind of recover. And so I left that performing side of things for them, and we'd book them in. So
I suppose the interesting thing, Nathan, is back to what we were saying earlier. You're making that conscious decision now of what was right for the business. Yeah, because the natural one could have been, it's me, I'm Nathan, I've got to go and do some magic. I've got to survive. But I can almost hear in that collect, no, there is something here. And the right thing to do now is focus on the team. Yeah,
Exactly.
getting the team engaged, because that will start to come through that way. And and I think it's been really interesting, and how when we talk to people is about that suddenly there's a whole clarity that comes around that gets lost. There was
Yeah.
about, I think, for a lot of good businesses, and we had the same thing. We were literally running a conference in Sydney,
Yeah.
140, 150 people. It's that morning, and we're getting phone calls we had one person arrive and said, well, I managed to get on the plane, yet their colleague of theirs who was on like a plane an hour later had been stopped from flying. The business had just literally, it was that, literally within an hour, it was the difference between, and then there was others saying, I've been told I've got to go home. Well, I'm here. I've now got to go home because I don't want to be locked down and everything else. So it was that thing. But I think while coming back to this, suddenly there was this, okay, you needed to deal with yourself personally first, then they become that team and everything else. But I would imagine for a lot of business, there's certain clarities. Things become very, very clear very, very quickly,
Yeah.
And I think that may lead in. I know that Eric is really about the strategy and foresight and things like that.
Yeah.
I reckon there was a lot of business who really performed well at that time because they
Yeah.
may have used the pivot word, which is fine, but there was clarity.
Yeah.
And I think there's coming out of that now, once we come out of it, is, I think, again, it's another fundamental lesson is however busy you are and you've got remote, different countries, different time zones, the communication was back to and clarity is so important. People have really
Yeah.
got to know where they're going.
100%. And even I guess you'd say jumping on opportunities and doubling down when you see the potential for something to work. Like, towards the later half of the year when we started coming out of the actual physical lockdowns, we'd never done school formals before, ever. We'd never had an inquiry for a school formal before. But all of a sudden, out of the blue, we had one, then we had two, and it's like, okay, sweet, all right, this will actually work. The reason being because they were having school formals, but all of the students had to be separated, in that, what was it, 2.5 meters or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
And all of them are being separated, and they couldn't be too close together. They couldn't have a dance floor, so they couldn't get dance. They had to have some kind of entertainment that could come around to the tables where they were, and they're renting out these massive areas just to legally have a school formal. Like one of them that I remember doing was in the what's it? It's over at the where the Eka is.
Yeah,
Was it the RNA Showgrounds?
yeah,
The actual big conference center,
yeah, yeah.
and there was a school formal there, and they literally had tables of 4 students at a table, and it's like a big round table, to the point where I'm performing magic, and I've got to, like, to get someone involved, like to hold their hand out, I've got to take like a meter and a half step one way and then another meter and a half step the
Yeah.
other way, just to grab something to get them involved in a way that was safe and everything, and but it was something that we'd never done before. We'd never had inquiries for
Yeah.
or anything like that. But when we had the first one or two jump on board, and they were like, we need this, then we just doubled down. It's like, okay, cool. Let's reach out to all of them and say, hey, this is something we offer, and it's something that's actually continued on post-COVID too, to the point where we do a number of school formals every year now, because it just works so well, those as well.
Yeah.
But it opened up a whole other market for us.
Yeah, fantastic. Eric, you look as if you've got a
Yeah, I was just wanted to extend Kevin's thoughts there around pivoting, or the ability for your business to be agile enough to deal with the issues. And at that point through COVID, you were the face of the business because of all the things you just described before. My question is in terms of building resilience in your business now. You don't have to tell us exactly what you did, because I know that that's IP and all the rest of it. But Post COVID and engaging with the technology like Zoom and things like social media, because if you go on any platform like YouTube and you look up magicians, you will see hundreds of posts from varying qualities of ability in that area to very good social media presence. And I've always been curious about that in service type industry, which is what you do. You're providing a service and you're providing something that is unique, because not everyone can do magic and are always spellbound by it. And it's an event, right? So I understand that. In the building of your resilience in the business, have you explored um, how to create uh, that that sense of event online by creating your own content in that space, or are you more married to, yeah, you need to be in person because magic is experienced face to
Yeah.
face? And why I ask that is in any business, in the businesses that Kevin represents, in the businesses I've worked for, you have to adjust to the environment that you've got. And so I used to work in the seafood industry here in Queensland, and when COVID hit, their industry was classed as essential food provision, so they could keep working. They needed to
Yeah.
provide food because people needed to eat. Whereas in your sector and in Kevin's, if you can't be in the same space, you were just locked down and that was it. So to get back to the question, building that resilience in the business, what does that look like for you? Or is that something you're still working on post COVID?
So post-COVID, I think the Zoom shows dropped right off. I don't think that, like, for actual paid events for the Zoom shows, I don't think that's anywhere near as big as it was, because people can have events in person, and in all honesty, magic in person is always going to be a million times better. Because when you're standing in front of someone and they're holding an object and it changes inside their hands, or you read their mind, or you produce something that doesn't seem possible right in front of their eyes, it's always going to be a million times better. And even on stage, it's the same kind of thing compared to online. But there is the occasional one of those that still pops up. When you talk about like social media content with like regular magic videos and things like that, for me personally, it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier about choosing where your role fits within the business and where to focus on. And some of our guys absolutely crush the online, like Instagram, TikTok game with all of that. It's also something that you've got to invest a lot of time in, because not only is it just the filming, but you've also got to learn and create new magic for all these different types of videos. You've got to rehearse it all and everything like that. And then there's also the filming and the editing. And so it's a whole process just in that side of things.
Yeah.
And I think for me, that's not an area that I think I need to that I should be focusing my time on. I feel like there's other more important areas for me in my role, which is that business growth and the performing things like that. But it is absolute. I think with any business, and in particular with where we're at in 2024, online presence is so massive that it's something that every business needs to have some kind of online presence in, whether it's podcasts, whether it's TikTok videos, whether it's Instagram reels, and even more so is video content versus photographic content, like still imagery, because video content always captures more. And Gary V does some great speeches and talks on the power of social media and advertising through it, and how important it is for any business. And in particular, saying one of the things that stands out in my head right now that he mentions is that it's not also about having the most polished content, like with the best lighting, the best camera, all that kind of stuff. It's just about having content, because that helps boost your Google algorithm and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But for me, with our business and where we see things going, we want to post more video content and more social media content of our guys. But I think for me personally, my role is it's probably less about me in the content, but more about everyone else. And I think that's just going to help everything grow.
Sorry, I should have asked that question more succinctly. And again, I'm learning through this podcast because Kevin's the master here. I'm still learning my craft, as it were. That I didn't mean necessarily you, but in terms of future proofing the entire business. Because I personally see that, and much to my regret, that people are living on their phones and wanting to see things, and there's a generation, and that generation is aging, and myself and Kevin are in that generation where I would rather see magic performed in person, because there's a connection there that you don't get online. But there are a lot of people that can't leave their homes, that want this kind of content. And for corporates and other things, I think the online world is there, and it sounds like you're already there. But in asking the question, it's more around, yeah, you are thinking around the nuances of all the things. Just, you don't have to be doing all of it. And that's quite a healthy thing too, because if you were doing everything that your business required to make it future proof, you'd never do anything in the magic space, because you're working on the business. And that's the tension I was talking about before. As a founder, this is your baby, and so you want it to work. And so your time is probably more precious now than it was when you first started, because as the kernel of an idea, it started to grow and get an infrastructure. And you even said it before, I'm looking to add a layer of management to the business, which I know that sparked Kevin's interest. I was like, oh, he's building it as he goes to increase its survivability longer term, because you need those structures as you start to grow. And that's something you can't escape, because you don't have those team leaders that, as Kevin mentioned and you mentioned, something's going to drop off, and you really don't want to create problems where there are none. So again, good problems to have, that you're foresighting those things, but it's then getting them to happen and not you be doing it, but have someone else do it. So yeah, 100% get it. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kevin.
No. So I want to just come back to a point, because I'm looking at how, again, I'm always amazed how quickly time goes here, and we know we can do. So maybe we'll have to get you back again, Nathan, I think, on some other things. But can I just go back and again, is you picked up on the point here, and I suppose it's a two-edged question here. So I've really got something we've been working around, and we talk about it in our network, is what we call the cluster type mentality of businesses or regions. And I do a lot of work on the Sunshine Coast, and obviously we've got our regions around, and they talk about the 3 C's, and they basically say, if you really want to be successful as a group, you've got to know when to collaborate. So that's the time where you've just got to get in and do it. Then there's a cooperation element. Oh yeah, we just work together, or I agree not to go over here and you do this. But the third one is, you do need that bit of competition, because that's what keeps you honest and true. And it sounds like, that how competitive, because I suppose company secrets, you've got company secrets and mentioned IP, but some of your magicians must have, they've spent hours developing how to turn a pen into a submarine, or whatever the case may be. How do you tackle, because there must be some times where you go, that's great, can we do it elsewhere? Is it how and how do you deal with that type of, because for the greater good, that would be something that could take you to the next level as an organization?
So I guess with magic itself, with what the guys are doing, a lot of the guys have their own style. With magicians, we could have 3 people that could all perform the same trick, one after another. But because we all have a different personality and a different style of performing, that same trick can look like 3 completely different tricks to a general audience member. And so we don't control what the guys create. We don't control what they come up with. That's their own kind of thing, because all these guys have their own businesses. Like they were a magician before they met us. And so we don't want to stop their creativity. We don't want to stop any of that. And so when it comes to, unless we've specifically hired them to create a specific product for us, for a specific client, a lot of their property is their own property, so to speak. The only things that we do is how we do kind of limit and control some of that is we'd ask the guys if they're going to a corporate event or they're going to a private house party or something, to try not to do the scary stuff that'll make people throw up their drinks, like it's got to be appropriate magic, like you can't have needles going through arms or anything like that. It's got to be like appropriate to the types of events. That's, I guess, how we kind of limit things a little bit, but like they're free to create whatever they like. They're free to expand however they like. Did that kind of answer the question?
And it was, because I think, and again, when you're trying to grow a business, entrepreneur, and obviously you're into that type of stage, is you want your teams to get out there, do things, try things, but you also, there's some boundaries here as well, because and I suppose it's one of the points is a takeaway for me, and we're going to come to those in a minute, is that situational awareness is so important, because there could be you're doing so. There might be something when we're at the CEO Sleep Out, another plug, and we're doing the launch. There must be times where, and I suppose it's a bit of a real trick from a leadership point of view, that where you suddenly go, this is not right, or that next thing I was going to do, do you know what? I'm not going to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I've got a feel or gut thing, or I'm getting a look on someone's face to go, don't take me there.
100%. And the way that I kind of describe for example, we'll just take close-up magic, for example. The way that I describe close-up magic is that it's pardon me, it's an audition. Every single group that you go to, you've got to audition to get their attention and to win them over. Every single time you're trying to win over every single person at that group. And so you might have your certain tricks and magic that you're going to perform for that particular group, or that you might have in your standard repertoire, but you've got to be aware enough and situationally aware enough with the people at that group to go, okay, well, this isn't going to work with this group, or my comedy in this style isn't going to work with this group. I need to adjust it. And so with each group that we go to, we'll try to get people involved, but we'll also try to accommodate the magic and the comedy to the people in that group and how they're behaving in that time. Like, you might get someone that's been an absolute dick, but we still want to win them over. At the end of it, I want to be their best friend. And you want to do it in a fun and enjoyable way that they don't feel like they're getting picked on. And I guess, I've lost in life. But I guess one of the things that like with magic, for example, one of the things that was explained to me very many years ago when I first started magic is magic trick might go from start to finish, right? But the actual magic trick itself is only this little section over here. The rest of it is the storytelling, the comedy, interaction. And that's the important part, that every group you go to, you need to make sure you adjust and work with to make sure you can connect with everyone.
Now, do you know what? I think you've just picked up on a great point, which I think we need to go on to another topic here. And I'm loving the lights going out, and you just have to adapt quickly and keep going. So there you go on the stage. But we talk about this when we talk about our events and activities and forums, and when we talk with our members. It's like you say, I am just giving you this product. You've purchased this product. But the whole journey from the start of interaction to the time I engage with you to the time I turn up, deliver and close out is critical. It's that whole experience. And I think sometimes as a business leader, we can just worry about, I've just got to deliver magic. I've just got to be there and deliver the card trick. You forget that whole journey. And I love the audition word. I think it's fantastic. I'm going to start using that one. Is about you, because if you don't feel that way, you're not going to give it 100%.
Exactly.
You're not going to give it that 100%. So
and that also, like, the energy for me, like, my background, as I mentioned, was acting in something called the Meisner technique. And the Meisner technique, basically in a short version, teaches you to stop thinking about what your scripting is and what you're going to do, but deliver it based on how the audience is reacting. So you're reacting to how they're behaving and where they're at right then. So you're always adjusting where you're sitting to match their energy. And I think whenever I approach a group, it's like, okay, I need to come in there with the same kind of energy with where they're at and try and match that to be able to connect with them. Like if you come in with energy that's like through the roof and they're sitting about here, they can be like, holy cow, what's going on? Like, just chill, dude, chill.
Yeah, no, exactly right. Yeah.
You know, when you're approaching a group, whether it's a sales, whether it's at a trade stand or a trade event, which we do those as well. Yeah. Shameless little plug there. Whether it's a trade event and you're trying to bring people in and approach and sell them a product that you've got, you've got to match whatever energy level those people are at. You know, whether it's trade event, corporate event, private birthday party, you know, the 18-year-olds or 50-year-olds. You know?
Yeah, no, it's a great point. I love that one, and I think it's a great point that a lot of us can take away in terms of how much have we just come totally focused and lost, you know, what everything is going. So what I think we're going to do here, and again, been fantastic, and I think we could talk a lot more where we go, is just what I'm going to give it, just with you to have a little think. So what would be your leadership tips here, Nathan, at the minute? You know, your couple of top tips. Eric, I'm going to come to you first. So just our normal, what's the little takeaways from our discussion with Nathan and the bit of magic that we've had?
Probably two things. The first one, in terms of the leader themselves, it sounds like, Nathan, given this discussion, that you're well aware of what's happening in your industry, you're well aware of what's happening in your business, and that you're dividing your energies accordingly, and hopefully that includes self-management. That's a big part of keeping leaders alive and well and happy, because outside of the business, you probably have a life that you love that's not the business. So there's that part of it as well. And I'm envious that you're doing what you're passionate about. So that's a good thing in running a business. It's a great addition to having a business of your own. Probably the second one is really giving a crap about the people that you work with, because you call your team your family, like an extension of that. Whether or not they saw that themselves, you weren't sure. I'm sure they do, but that's important as well. The culture that you create is the culture that people see, and if they don't think that it's a happy place to be, then why would they engage? And some people are better at picking up on that than others, and will make decisions about, well, the company must be X if people act like Y. And so those two things stood out for me, Kevin. Yeah.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And Nathan, for me, and it's obviously we connect. You auditioned, or I auditioned well when we met, because obviously we've come back together. So I would take that. But I think definitely that right style of leadership. You know, knowing the situational leadership, and right from the very start, and how you come through. For me, the situational awareness. I think it's. And again, from a leadership, understanding where you are, but then obviously what your team needs, and how you then transfer that out to the wider business as well. Because again, I could have a great product, great service, but if it's not matching what the customer needs, or back to what Eric was saying, if your style is not matching what your people need, you know, it can very fall over. And I know I said it before, this audition, I just really resonating with me today about, if you're not keeping that tension about, yeah, I may know this group, or I may know that person, or, you know, they're a good friend, or that type of thing. If you're not in that audition type mindset, which is, we always talk about it, if when our members and our attendees are walking away from events, if they're not saying that's fantastic and encouraging others to do it, then we've not achieved anything. It could have been the best thing ever, but it's that, how are they then going out and promoting it? But you've also got the point is about checking in with your team, because if your team are not walking away with going, we enjoyed that, the next time you say, how about this gig, they're going to go, forget it. Or I'll do it, but I'm not going to deliver at 100%.
Yeah.
And I think that's great from that point of view. So some really fantastic takeaways and new takeaways for me, which is always great. So just to close off, Nathan, there, and I know you see you still haven't got any power, but that's all right.
I don't know what's happening.
That's only right. So if we were just here and we just like to do this and just from a leadership basis or from a entrepreneur startup basis, if I was saying, and I'm not going to do this, set up my own magician business because I'm lousy at it, but to talking to the people out there, and it could be some young people out there who are dealing with, what would be just a couple of your leadership tips?
I think one of them would probably be if something, which is something I'm always trying really hard on, is if something comes across your desk or on your phone or whatever that might be a problem or an issue within the business, then make sure you take a breath. Just take a breath. Don't try and just take a breath and process it. You never want to deal with a situation in the wrong frame of mind. So I think whatever situation might arise, just make sure you always step back, breathe, process it instead of letting your emotions get the better of you, to then be able to talk about it and deal with it in the right kind of manner. So that's, I think, probably that's a big thing for me. Because I think the second thing is that the people in your team, it's always hard to try and let go of some of the power and trust in other people to do the right thing. But I think it's a bit of a two-way street. You've got to trust them and they've got to trust you. And so if you can make sure you trust them and look after your team, then I think everything is going to be fine.
Yeah.
Because the team are the ones that are representing you. The team are the ones that are out there doing the performing in our sense.
Yeah.
So I've got to trust them to do a great job and trust in all the hard work that we've put in to try and find some of the best magicians in the country.
Yeah.
And trust that they are genuine good people that are going to do the right thing. And I think, having a good team of people that you work with and looking after them and trusting them is such an important thing.
I think that's two fantastic takeaways, Nathan, and I think it's set the scene for us right at the very end here. So can I just thank you, Nathan? It has been an absolute pleasure this morning just to do this, and great to keep on connecting with you, and looking forward to June to the CEO Sleep Out and whatever magic you're going to bring there, and I'm sure
Absolutely, likewise.
Yeah.
Did you want to see a quick one?
Yeah, come on in. Let's do it.
All right.
Go on in.
Now, look, let me shift this back. We're going to adjust a little bit just to finish off for you. And I'm going to bring it down here just so we can see. Now, you obviously know that magicians use cards quite a lot for their magic. And what I've got here is I've got something a little bit different. I thought we'd try something a little bit different. Now, do you believe in fate and destiny, things like that?
Yeah, I do. Yes. Yeah? I do.
Well, what I've got here is I've got a packet of little tarot cards. Let me bring these ones out here. So you can see here we've got a whole bunch of different tarot cards. They've got different pictures on them and things like that. I'll go through them slowly in a second. But the interesting thing about these is what's actually on the backs. So let me angle this a little bit now that we've lost all of that light above. But what's interesting is what's on the backs. Now you'll notice that there's one card here that has the word future written on it.
Right.
There's one card here somewhere. There it is. That has the word present.
Yeah.
And then one that has the word, where is it? There we go, past. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
But we don't know which ones they are. So we're going to leave them hidden in amongst the deck here. Now, with tarot cards, there's hundreds. I've got it maybe like 20. I think there's 20 or 21, something like that here. I think it's 21. So we're going to split them into three piles. A pile for past, pile for present, pile for future. So we've got, let me see, 21 divided by 3, 7. We'll try this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll try and get 3 even piles real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then we're going to get both of you involved in this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Perfect. All right. So I've got 3 even piles. I'm going to angle the camera down for this one. Okay. Yep. And so I've got 3 even piles, a pile for past, pile for present, pile for future. So what we're going to do, let me see, maybe Kevin, how about we get you for this one? What we're going to do, I'm going to go through each one of these cards. And at the end, I just want you to name one. anyone you like, whichever one you like, free choice, okay?
Yeah.
So I'll read out the names. The names are at the top here. I don't know if you can see it properly in the pictures here with the light, but hopefully we can make it so you can see it. So we've got the Hanged Man. We've got the Emperor. But when you do this, I just want you to pick one that maybe stands out to you. It can be like the picture, or you don't like the picture, or maybe you like the name of it, or you don't like the name of it, whatever you like. So we've got the Hanged Man. We've got the Emperor. We've got the Death, the Devil, the Hermit, the Moon, and the Tower. Which one would you like? This is to represent past.
The Emperor.
The Emperor. Where is that? Oh, this one here? The Emperor.
Yeah.
All right. Here we go. We're going to sit this one down here just like that. Okay, we'll get rid of that. Next up, we have a pile for present. Now, Eric, you are up for this one here. I'll give you the same and just pick one for present. Okay, so we've got the Fool. We have the Stars. We have Judgment, Temperance, the Empress, the Chariot, and Strength. Which one would you like?
Temperance.
Temperance. Temperance. This one here?
Yep.
That one there?
Yep.
Perfect. All right, so we'll sit this one down here just like that. Okay, so we've got what do we got? The Emperor and Temperance. The Emperor for past, Temperance for present. Okay, so we've got one last one. Kevin, you're up. Here we go.
Okay.
We've got the Magician. We've got Justice. We have the High Priestess. We've got the Wheel, the World, the Sun, and the Lovers. Which one would you like?
It's got to be Magician. It's got to be. What's going to be?
All right, the Magician. Oh, the top one. Here we go.
Yeah.
That one there?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. What we're going to do, we'll put that one down there just like that. Now we've got 3 different cards, complete free choice, yes?
Yeah.
Now, remember how on the backs of the cards, there was a couple of cards that actually had writing on them. There was just 3 in the entire deck that had writing on them.
Yeah.
One that said past, one that said present, and one that said future.
Wow.
Nicely done.
Oh, nice.
A little bit of fun.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, this is a world first. So I'm going to claim the world first Best Practice Network Talking Leadership Magic Show, and we can claim that one. That was fantastic, Nate. I was really trying to work out where it was going to go, and then you got me there. And I was really trying to be the whole, I'm not going to be judged. I'm just going to go that point. Fantastic.
Thanks, Nathan.
Well done that. Thanks, Nathan. All right. Well, on that, what a better way to close out this latest podcast from Best Practice Network Talking Leadership. So, Eric, I think that was slightly different, that one, and thoroughly enjoyable. And I feel sorry for the next person on the podcast. I just don't know how they're gonna follow that one. But
we've set a high bar, sir. Thank you, Nathan. This was great. Appreciate it, mate.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on board.
Yeah, no, Nathan's been fantastic. Like I say, looking forward to working with you. Keep on going forward. Can I thank everybody? We hope you enjoy the audio, but you've got to watch the video as well at the end on that one. It's fantastic to have you as part of this podcast series, and we look forward to seeing and listening to you and you hearing from us at the next one. Thanks very much, everybody.